Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. So yesterday was patch day, and we got to try Standard Arena for the first time, and it was pretty interesting overall. I had some pretty good moments, some pretty good experiences, and I wanted to share my first impressions of all the little different factors involved in these big changes. So, yes, there were some constructed changes as well, but I don't care too much about those. We're going to focus on the arena. So in Arena, we knocked out Goblin vs. Gnomes and Nax Ramus sets from the drafting process. And yeah, that made things a bit interesting. It did seem like you got quite a bit more spells. I don't know about 50%. I don't think I was quite seeing 50% spells offered in any given time throughout the draft, but it seemed like it was more spells at the very least. And certainly we were getting much higher rarity overall. Most of my decks throughout the night had about 50% common cards, which I believe is what they aimed for. So pretty good stuff on that. But of course, because you don't have some of the old cards, and of course, because some of the old common cards and still some of the existing common cards are some of those powerful cards in the whole arena game, some of the older decks were pretty damn strong. And yeah, that was a little bit of a problem. My main issue with the entire transition that we had was that people who had older decks, had old, like wild decks, generally had gigantic advantages. And it was really, really shitty, actually. Some people also said that under certain mobile clients, they didn't get an update and they were still just drafting new wild decks even as of the first day of the patch. So some pretty weird stuff, and it seems like the transitional period was kind of a disaster. The reason I want to say that is on the first day of an update like this is when people try the game mode. This is when people are like, Arena Standard right now, I want to check it out. And I can tell you I played Arena all of yesterday, and almost 100% of my losses were against wild decks. They were against decks that should not exist in Arena, and a lot of these losses came as a result of me not knowing that my opponent could possibly have those cards. So, for instance, when you'd play against a mage, you'd play like a 3-drop with 4 health against an empty board, and mages, if you play standard, actually don't have an answer to that play. So you can make a high-risk play, even though you might not have a follow-up play, because you know your minion cannot die to any cards that a mage would have. But then you find out suddenly that you're playing a mage with a wild deck and he has flame cannon, and then you just lose the game. So they made Arena with the idea in mind that you should start playing around specific cards, but fewer specific cards because it's in the standard format. However, with like half of the people playing Arena on the first few days playing with wild decks, completely ruined that and made it so you basically just dive into a pile of shit. And yeah, I have to say that while the standard gameplay was pretty cool, drafting standard cards was pretty cool, drafting golden cards was really cool, playing against wild decks and having, surprise, I have this answer I shouldn't have and you lose because of it, was really not cool. At all. So I think Blizzard should have some kind of like auto-retire to decks that are not legal in any given state in Arena, and should just offer people full refunds, like 150 gold or another Arena ticket, if they have to do it that way. And, I thought it was a pretty big problem this time around. Even though Standard Arena seems to be, on initial impressions, a lot more fun than the old Arena, these wild decks just plague it and make it overall a really inconsistent and shitty experience. And the reason I bring this up, it happened already. It's not like Blizzard can come in and fix it right now. But in the next Standard cycle, Blizzard can maybe now consider preparing for that. When the next set is released, Arena will have probably its biggest change ever in the entire history, in its entire history in Hearthstone, where it's going to lose, 3 gigantic sets, and it's only going to gain 1. So the card pool is going to be so much smaller, so much more focused on specific cards, playing around these cards and trying to synergize these cards. So if people are still playing their old decks, which, have a lot of answers that you'd otherwise have to play around, that is going to entirely screw up that gameplay experience. It's most enjoyable to play Arena when it's fresh, when there's new things going on, when there's big changes that you as a good player can take advantage and learn them faster than mediocre and bad players. However, being punished because people had old decks that just surprise kill you and destroy you because you can't possibly know to play around cards you shouldn't have to play around, well, that basically entirely undermines the best point in the game to play Arena and other game modes in general. So that really needs to change. We want to encourage people to play Arena because actually, in my opinion, it is by far the best game mode Hearthstone has to offer, but people get a bit put away by it, and this experience certainly didn't help that. People tried Arena for the first time, drafting standard decks, and probably lost most of their games to wild decks. That's just bullshit, especially for a feature in the game that a lot of people will usually pay money for. You're really not getting what you are signing up for with money, so that is really not fair. Other than that, though, it seems like the standard Arena meta has slowed down quite a bit, but again, you kind of get punished by it because you play wild decks, which are generally a lot faster, and you're not quite as well prepared to beat them. So, yeah. I encourage you to play greedier decks if you want to win in Standard Arena, but if you play wild decks, you're going to get absolutely fucking wrecked, so you might want to wait a few days. Other than that, it's kind of hard to gauge things. I was very critical of basically all of my opponents, all their plays, all their player rounds, all their, strategies, but right now it's a pretty open environment. I don't know if it's a good idea to play around certain cards, if it's a good idea to play around board clears, if it's a good idea to just go all in. I don't know if it's a good idea to play the tempo game. It seems pretty good for some classes. Some of the rogues that I encountered who were playing the tempo game even with standard decks seem to have some pretty good results, but it seems to be that these archetypes are much more focused on the given classes rather than as a whole. So it seemed like I had a lot of success playing greedy and slow control decks as a priest, but I wouldn't recommend you try that as a rogue. So it seems like there is no unified way to play Arena across all the different classes, and I think that is really spectacular. So I think this is the start for a really good age, but we really had a pretty fucked up start because of the wild decks just ruining the experience for most people trying to play it for the first time. So I do hope they learn from that, and I am pretty optimistic about the future of Arena, as it just seems more enjoyable. It seems nice, fresh, and it's going to be fresh for the next few months. And it seems like there's a lot more strategy to explore. And this idea of exploring strategy, I think, is a very important one that you should kind of take to heart. It's right now, more than ever, you should kind of try to do what you think might work more than anyone else might tell you does work. And speaking of that, I thought I'd mention Hearth Arena as well. You guys know that's a software that tells me all the scores of the cards and the drafting process. Hearth Arena still works pretty well, but as you know, Hearth Arena is a statistically driven engine, essentially, and it takes, while the first few weeks they have arena experts actually do very, very well out there, and they try to guess how good the cards are, but it takes a few weeks until they can really take the information from its player base and people that use the apps and determine how powerful the cards are by statistical measurements. And, it's probably pretty damn accurate still right now, but you have to keep that in mind. I do encourage you guys to be a bit more adventurous, regardless of whatever Hearth Arena might indicate you should try, at least in these first few weeks, because we don't really know how it will settle, particularly when all the classes are considered. And the other thing is, with the golden cards being drafted in Arena, they're really working hard right now to fix it, but because some of the golden cards look very differently than some of the non-golden cards, it might take a bit for the drafting process to recognize which cards are actually on the screen, because it does understand the cards that you're offered based off of visual indicators. So as a result, you might have to be a little bit more patient using Hearth Arena, but they do have some solutions, and those guys over there do a kick-ass job. So give them a little bit, it'll all be streamlined, but in the meantime, I do very much encourage you to try Arena. Just be careful. You are going to lose to wild decks bullshit a lot in these first few days, and it's going to suck. But if you can deal with that, it's a pretty good experience. And if you can't, wait a few days and try it then, because it does seem like Arena has gotten quite a big of a push in the right direction from these changes, and certainly should not be ignored. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my recap of the first day and all little factors involved, and I really hope that these mistakes are not repeated when the standard rolls over a few months from now, and yeah, hopefully that expansion kicks ass as well. Until then, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.